Hello, I'm Tyler Pellegrini, NLI's restoration ecologist, and today we're at Lost Flora Fen on the boardwalk live. So we'll be with you for about 20 minutes. If you have a question or a comment or think this video is cool, make sure to like and add your comment and it will get answered and read today. So Lost Flora Fen is one of our preserves that's open to the public, and it's located off of Sharp Road in Rockton, Illinois. And if you want to come out, make sure to call the NLI office because it's a little tricky. You have to go through some cow gates and electric wires that are not super energized, but anyways, it's a little tricky, so call ahead. But there's a parking lot and this wonderful boardwalk that extends to the west behind me, and it's about 600 feet long. It was installed over the last couple of years by NLI volunteers and staff, and it was part of our funding that we provide a public access area. So what you can see, if you want to pan maybe a little bit to each side, we're kind of in the middle of the fen here, which is one of our highest quality and remnant spots. And now you're looking at a hayfield that divides two of our remnant sedge meadows and the Raccoon Creek back beyond there, and then coming back to this main sedge meadow fen setting here. So it's a pretty unique preserve. We've got over 300 species of native plants, 89 species of birds have been seen here, 31 species of Lepidoptera or butterflies and moths, and then 24 species of Odonata, so dragonflies and damselflies. And it's one of our most diverse and highest quality remnant preserves that we've got. So NLI acquired Lost Flora Fen in 2018, and funding was provided by Illinois Clean Energy Community Foundation, and a donation in memory of Stephen and Veronica Kramer. So you'll see their name on the sign. And what we've got here essentially behind me is a lot of species that you only find in a sedge meadow, wetland, fen type setting. We've got some dogwoods that are kind of thick, and part of the management here is going to be removing some of these dogwoods. If you look over to my other side, my left shoulder, you can see a pretty dense patch. And one of the interesting parts about this preserve is that before NLI acquired it, it was grazed heavily for the past several decades at least. So what happened is the cows actually ate a lot of this vegetation, and they ate a lot of the brush and kept it to its moderate level now, which is somewhat manageable. But if a preserve like this had just been left to its own devices with no management, it would be completely brushed in and a much less diverse and less high quality spot. So what we've got, let me look through my notes here, but our boardwalk here will bring you through some really diverse, mainly plants. We've seen some cool birds and cool butterflies along the way too, but it really gets you a good up-close view of some really unique and some rare plants that haven't been seen in several decades in Winnebago County. And what you can do is log on to something like eBird or iNaturalist, walk around out here, and if you see a bird or see a plant that you don't know, you can take a picture, submit it to that app, and then do a little botanizing or birding and kind of learn what makes this place really neat. So again, if you have any comments, questions, we've got about 15 minutes, but I want to talk about, find this note. Where did that go? I want to mention our volunteers who actually built the boardwalk, since that's today's focus. So we have our Wednesday Niagara and Wetland crew that comes out. They've been out, some of them for 10 years working with us. They come out every Wednesday and do whatever's on the agenda. So they do things like this, build this boardwalk. They collect a lot of seed, kill a lot of weeds, cut trees, and anything else that we really need them for. But they worked tirelessly a couple years ago and built these sections in 8 feet pieces, and like I said, we've got about 600 feet here. And a lot of these sedges in here are tussock sedge, and you can see if I were to step off, which we don't recommend, it gets really low and wet, and then you'll have taller mounds or tussocks. And so we had to go through here, identify where the boardwalk was going to be, like which plants we wanted to see, and maybe some really rare plants or rare animals that we encountered along the way, and reroute the boardwalk. But essentially, without the boardwalk, if you wanted to see some of the cool stuff that's in here, it's almost like walking through a miniature mogul field on a ski hill. You're constantly up and down and tripping and falling in water. So this is a really neat way to be able to actually see some cool plants, and we use it actually for access to, as we looked at before, this hayfield back here and the sedge meadow beyond, and for seed collection and invasive treatments in here. We use this for access just like anyone else would, and it makes it a lot easier. So
we're at the east end.
Okay, so we're at the far east end of the boardwalk here. You can see it doesn't continue on, and if you look up, you can see some high energy power lines. And so this hayfield here that's out there that's really short and mowed is the right of way for these power lines. So if you get out here, what you can do is you can continue to explore, since it's open to the public. You can walk through there and farther east to another sedge meadow with some really cool plants as well, and then continue back along to the boardwalk, back to the parking area. But again, it's a little confusing, and once you get out here, a lot of stuff looks the same in any directions, like sometimes. So again, make sure you call the NLI office and get specific instructions, because it's a little tricky. But part of the management here is, I don't think you can see the cows, but our neighboring property owner uses cows on part of our preserve that's much less high quality and in need of a lot more work than our small staff can manage. So the cows are grazed rotationally, and they keep most of the bad weeds down, but they don't like the multiflora rose. They won't eat that, so that's still a problem. But so going along with the cows, the grazing, that hayfield that was back like that direction, that's still being grown as a hayfield and harvested by the farmer every fall or late summer as a way to keep the weed pressure down in there as well. If we continue taking weeds prior to them setting seed, then we reduce the seed bank. But it's in the future, we plan to seed that into a drier prairie and transition from the wet to the dry to the wet to the floodplain of the Raccoon Creek.
So we had one comment.
So we've got a comment
Stacy.
from Stacy.
Kudos to your volunteers.
Kudos to the volunteers. Yes, definitely. And I should mention them by name. We've got Bob, Lee, and Lauren. If you know who you are and you're watching, definitely big thumbs up. Thank you. Like I said, we had 600 feet of this, and they worked on it in the heat of the summer, and they're a huge, huge help to us.
Stacy also asked, what town is this near?
So Stacy asked, what town is this near? And we're here west of Rockton, a little bit north, and then east of Shirland, I believe it is. It's off Sharp Road, and we're about a mile, maybe less than a mile from Wisconsin. So off to my left, to the north there.
You could say there's a map on the NLI website.
So there's a map on the Natural Land Institute website, naturalland.org, and that will give you specific directions to our what amounts to essentially a access easement. So you won't see an NLI sign at the gate off the road, but this is our access here.
Ann says she's still trying to get this to work. So
Okay, Ann says she's still trying to get this to work. So hopefully people are seeing it. It sounds like at least some people are, but
Okay.
so what we're going to do now is kind of just take a walk down the boardwalk. And if you were to come out, we're kind of going in a backwards fashion here. You'd be coming out from starting to the west back here, but here we go. So we're still kind of on an edge of a drier spot. Now moving into this wetter area, we've got a lot of sedges. We've got 30 species of sedges out here. We've got common boneset, this white flower, the dogwoods further back, and unfortunately some reed canary grass, which is being managed. But that's an invasive that we have to deal with in wetter spots. And actually, if you want to stop for a moment and just kind of pan this way, part of the cool history of this spot is here we're in a little bit of a low basin, and then essentially all around is a little bit of higher ground that supports oak trees, and you'll probably see cottonwoods and aspen. But this was a kind of a basin created by glacial activity, lower ground that's spring fed, and it's a unique ecosystem because it's not very common, and the conditions that led to it affected the soil type, the water pH, and that allows really uncommon plants to grow in spots like this. So it's a huge benefit when we can find a spot like this that hasn't been totally turned into a parking lot or a house, and we can protect it and improve it. But we've got some asters coming up, little light purple flowers, great blue lobelia hiding back here that's still in bloom, Lobelia syphilitica, and there's actually tons of that out here. It's been a cool thing to see.
So Carrie Lee says looking good.
Carrie Lee says looking good.
It looks beautiful, and then nice shots. Get some photos. And Stacy says keep at it. Loving the tour so far.
Cool. Thank you, Stacy. We're having fun. So we can continue on. Now we're getting into a little bit more water, a little bit lower elevation. We're still seeing some plants that you might find in a drier prairie. So more asters, a lot of goldenrod out here, several species of dogwood, several species of willows. Some of the willows present a similar problem as the dogwoods in that they continue to grow and grow and grow and outcompete other plants. Here, this plant that's done blooming and still has kind of a little bit of purple on it is blue vervain. Really pretty, kind of a blue purplish flower. And again, what makes this this boardwalk nice is we have access to some plants like this that are sources of seed for us that are within arm's reach off of a nice easy boardwalk, which is kind of a cool perk.
Isn't that the cream jam?
Oh, I hadn't seen these. So I'll step off here. Actually, this is turtle head. So we've got some white turtle head here. This nice white flower. So this part of the plant is still blooming, and then this part of the plant is now producing seed pods, these green little pods, and then that will produce the seed for the next continuing propagation. But turtlehead is a cool species. It can be a host for some uncommon insects. I believe it's the Baltimore checker spot. The turtlehead is the host plant for that butterfly, which has been documented here. And I think we came out in one day. We hiked around, and I think we recorded a dozen or more just in a couple hours. So pretty cool.
And Marie says, "I have been waiting for the Baltimore checker spots to find my turtlehead."
Marie said she's waiting for the Baltimore checker spots to find her turtlehead. So hopefully they're out there. One thing that we try to do to support insect populations is protect properties that are near each other to create kind of a corridor that allows insects and other animals as well to have access to food and refuge without having to fly 10 miles or so. So we got 3 minutes left. If you've got any questions, again, make sure to ask. And if you have questions too, just in general or about other preserves, we've got our Facebook page, Natural Land Institute. A bunch of preserves also have their own page. So if you had a question specific to Niagaran or Burr Oak Valley, definitely feel free to get on there and ask. Silver Creek Woods has, yes, so Silver Creek Woods has a volunteer workday tomorrow morning, usually 9 to 3, but whatever time you can give is good. And that schedule for that is on NLI's website as well.
Marie asks, "Is the fen open to the public?"
Marie asks, "Is the fen open to the public?" Yes, it is. So you can come out, essentially open dawn to dusk. And I mentioned earlier, but it's not just a driveway and a parking lot. It's a little more complicated than that to actually access here. We have an easement that gets us down a driveway to some cattle gates. So it sounds pretty tricky, but it's not that bad. But call the NLI office and you'll get some really good instructions on how to get out here. But it is open. You can come out and walk this. You can walk. Pretty much we ask folks to not trample properties and preserves and plants and stuff, so this boardwalk is a pretty nice view of the best spots so that you don't actually have to go trampling through remnant spots. But keep asking questions. We'll continue to walk as long as we have some time. A couple plants here while we have a minute. This, next to this aster, this little cinnamon willow herb with the little red seed pods that are sticking up. And then off to my right, a little farther, is Joe Pye weed. These nice purple flowers. There are a couple different species of this. This species likes it wetter. Obviously, it's in the water. And then there's a drier species as well, which is one of the host plants that we've found for the rusty patch bumblebee. They've been spotted in this part of the state a lot on Joe Pye weed. So we talked about this brush. You can see there's quite a bit of it. So we burned this area this past spring for the first time in several decades. And part of why we burn is to knock back brush. If you look off to the left, you can see a lot of dead sticks from the old larger plants that we killed with our fire and now have resprouted into that younger, shorter growth with the nice bright green leaves. But part of our management here will be continually burning on a every other year probably basis, and then if this brush won't go back on its own, we'll have to come in here and actually cut and remove, treat stumps, and prevent the brush from completely taking over.
Stacy says, thanks so much for bringing us into this beautiful fen.
Stacy said, thanks so much for bringing us into this beautiful fen, and you're welcome. It's been a pleasure. One of my favorite activities is coming out here, because I know I'm going to spend at least a couple hours, because it's just so neat and there's a lot to see. And myself, I'm still learning my birds and insects, so it's a great opportunity for me to come down this boardwalk, look around, take my time, and see some cool things. So we're at 21 minutes, so I guess unless anyone has any last minute questions here, we'll end it here. But thank you so much for joining us. It's been great, and definitely check out Analyze website for information and our calendar for volunteer work days. Thank you.